Hi everybody, welcome to my 2025 garden. So the first thing that you'd see if you were walking through with me is my new raised bed, which has two different types of squash in it, a Big Mac's pumpkin, and then also a red curry, I think it's like a Hokkaido style pumpkin, and then some different varieties of sunflowers behind it. You can see there's just a couple babies on there. I stuck some small Parisian pickling cucumbers in this planter because I had no other use for it, and they're actually doing pretty well, just coming on slowly. I have borage that has totally filled this side of the garden. It's self-seeded from a planting I did last year, and even though it's kind of a pain, it's beautiful and the pollinators love it, so I refuse to pull it out. This is bronze fennel, which is another one that the pollinators and the swallowtails love. I have some direct seeded little leaf cucumbers. I had started some inside over the winter, and they got eaten as soon as I put them out. So now I direct seeded these. One plant has been eaten so far, and knock on wood, the other ones don't get eaten. On the other side of the trellis, I have my Tramontino squash, which is by far my favorite squash, and I said the only zucchini type squash I'd ever grow again. I have no luck with a traditional green zucchini. They are immediately destroyed by squash bugs, but I have fantastic luck with a Tramontino. It trellises really well, it tastes very similar to zucchini, but the fruits are 2 or 3 times the size. These are my Maxabel green beans. They're a bush style bean, although they do get kind of tall. And they're a French fillet style bean, which we really like for cooking to have with dinner. And then my daughter also loves them pickled. It's the ducks doing their job. I have been a totally negligent tomato gardener this year. I was late to trellis. I've been I was going to say late to prune, but I have not been pruning at all. And my tomatoes are doing fabulously. So I'm excited to see how that goes for me this year. I know that the concern is always that there'll be blight or other disease, but my thinking is, I'll give it a shot. They're going to get sick eventually anyways. I live in a kind of humid climate. So if they're going to get sick anyways, I might as well give the abundance of fruit that's on the plants a chance. I have a little carrot bed that I put in kind of as an afterthought, and now I'm not tending to. It's full of weeds. But I always see everybody else planting and pulling carrots pretty early on, and I get FOMO. I'm envious of their garden, and so I sprinkle some in, and I immediately planted them and then did not do anything, so I did not anticipate getting any carrots at all. These are my leeks. I didn't mulch them when I planted them, and then it immediately filled with weeds. They're the biggest leeks I've ever grown. I'm really excited about that. I wish that I had started more plants. I might try to direct sow some, but I don't know if I have enough time left because we're under 100 frost-free days now. These are my original little leaf cucumbers that I planted out when I planted out the garden back in May. They got a little bit stunted and I didn't think they were going to pull through, but now that it's warmed up, they finally have. My garlic is nearly ready to pull. I believe the variety that I planted is the Italy Hill Giant Ivory Hardneck from Fruition Seeds. This is cantaloupe that I direct seeded. They're growing. They're also kind of shaded out by the Tramontino now, so I don't know if they'll actually grow large enough to bear fruit. I was nervous with my peppers at the first start of garden season because it was such a rainy and cold spring. Peppers also love heat, but they've bounced back and now are growing really quickly, which is exciting. I have some sweet peppers and jalapenos as well. I do have a couple dahlias planted in my back garden. Last year, all my dahlias in the front got eaten. I'm not 100% sure if it was an animal or an insect. I have ones in the front garden that are doing pretty well, but just as a precaution, I also planted a few in the back. My basil is another thing that was a decision made in the garden planting out frenzy. I normally leave my basil over with other herbs or in my green stock, and I do have some in my green stock that's doing really beautifully, but I had an empty space and I stuck them in the ground and they're doing so well. I've already had 2 or 3 harvests off of these plants. I have 2 potato varieties that I'm growing. One is a Yukon Gold, one is a Huckleberry Gold purple skin potato from Baker Creek. So this is what I'm probably most excited for in the garden this year, which is fennel. I have bronze fennel. It overwinters really well for me, which is exciting. It's the first thing to pop up every year and show me that the garden is kind of waking back up. It does not produce a bulb the same way that your kind of traditional Italian green fennel does. And so I decided to try my hand at a more traditional fennel this year because we love it in this particular pasta recipe that I make. And all of them are doing really well, and I think I'm going to be able to harvest them. I have Joan J. raspberries that I started as 3 canes 2 or 3 years ago now. And they are just totally loaded with fruit on the bottom, and they are spreading like wild. It's a nice little treat to just have a few extra raspberries every day. I have had the best kale and cabbage year ever this year in the couple years that I've been growing. I always have issues with cabbage moths laying eggs and then cabbage worms all over any kind of leafy green that I grow, to the point of it being inedible. So I tried cabbage a few years ago. I love cabbage. I love the way it grows in the garden. I just think it's so beautiful. It's something that my family really enjoys eating, but it is either infested with the cabbage worms or slugs. We have a very slug-ridden yard. We did. We now have runner ducks, and they have totally eliminated our slug problem, which is amazing. But the other thing I did this year was, as soon as I set these plants out in the spring, I covered them. So we have these hoops. We made these last year to cover up some tulips that were getting eaten by rabbits, and I've repurposed them to be a little low tunnel for my greens. So the hoops are just conduit that we bent with a handheld bender. If I did this again, I would definitely spring for one of the speed benders that they sell. That makes it easier to make these style of hoops because it was a pain. And then I have some of this insect netting from Gurney's that I bought this year. Last year I tried to use tulle, like decorative tulle, because I had some and I was trying to save a few dollars. I would absolutely recommend not doing that. It kept tearing. It was just not holding up because it's cheap plastic. This insect netting that I got from Gurney's is really wonderful. It does block, I think they say 5% of the light, which I actually think I like because it's helping everything from bolting as quickly. Maybe I'm imagining that. Maybe I'm just having good luck. But it has done a really wonderful job at keeping out those pesky moths. So this is a mermaid's tail cabbage, also from Fruition Seeds, that I'm really hoping grows well because it's like this beautiful purple and green style cabbage. The kale I'm growing this year is red Russian kale, and it's doing really well. We do eat a little bit of this fresh, but my predominant use for it is freezing it and saving it for soups throughout the winter. At the beginning of the month, I started some scarlet runner beans. I saw someone saying how beautiful they were and how much the pollinators love them, so I'm going to try to get them to trellis up the side of my house if I can. I have celery growing in the side bed as well. where the borage has taken over, some clover and other weeds have also really taken over here. But I just love it. Even though it's a total mess, I think it's absolutely beautiful. I love to sit next to it because it's adjacent to our patio. And there's a few other odds and ends plants in this side garden that I really need to get around to weeding. And that is pretty much it. A lot of food, a lot of beautiful plants, a lot of weeds. This is the time of year that things start really taking off and everything begins to feel like it was all worth it. All of the seeds starting in the winter feels like it's coming into fruition now. So, thanks for watching.